Hey, how's it going?
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us today on the Purpose Pursuer webinar. We have a specific topic today, as usual, and it's based in what we are hearing from our clients regarding what it's like to deal in our world today, knowing your blueprint, knowing your purpose, and actively pursuing it. So, however, even though we've got a central topic, there are three official practitioners today, including myself, that will be talking about it from their own unique perspective, which is exactly the point of Blueprint. We are all here at this point in the world's history. By the way, this is Blueprint Principle number 2. We are all here at this point in the world's history for a specific reason. And when we're dealing with dark and uncertain times, challenging times, whether personally or collectively or both, we're going to be talking about how it's super powerful and orienting to know who you are, what your blueprint is, and how you're meant to add value. So I'm going to kick this party off, and why don't we just go in the order that my camera is in? So let's start with you, Annie, after me, and then Brandon and Bill in that order. So I'm going to talk about from my particular blueprint. I really want to focus on principle number 2 in blueprint. There are four principles. Principle number 2 is that you are unique for a reason. There's a lot of other really good things about blueprint. Principle number 1, for example, is that purpose is a divine event. It's not human. It's not based on you and what you do. It's who you are as a representative of the divine. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2, as I just mentioned, is that, yeah, you're unique for a reason. You're not only a unique expression of the divine, the limitless divine, but you're here at this point in the world's history for a very unique reason. And that's the one I personally am going to focus on today. And then principle number 3 is that you have everything in your toolbox, or what we refer to as your blueprint. You can see a blueprint there behind Brandon. Your blueprint holds everything you need in it, all your tools, your God-given tools to face the world and deal with the world and create value in the world that you see. And then finally, principle number 4 is that it's an ongoing, infinite journey. Understanding our blueprint, using our blueprint, and pursuing our purpose, it's ongoing. So as I say, me personally, I'm going to focus on principle number 2 today. So, principle number 2, as I said, is that you are unique for a reason. This is a beautiful, beautiful principle that unlocks the possibility of your uniqueness. Believe it or not, many people go through the world, especially reacting to events that are outside of themselves, events over which they have no control, feeling as if just that they're like a ship on wavy waters, bouncing about by the winds of change, external circumstances over which they have no control. And they literally spend the bulk of their lives just trying to keep their chin above water. Yeah. How many of us, myself included, have felt that way from time to time? But today is about what if not only are you here on purpose, but you have everything that you need to fulfill that purpose? So that shifts things entirely from survival to how can I help others? And of course, you're not just trying to help others survive. Why would you want less for them? You want to help them thrive through the use of your blueprint. So, my particular analogy and story today relates to a flashlight in a dark room. If you can just kind of picture that, walking into a dark room, a completely dark room, there's no other ambient light going on. You walk in with that flashlight and you click it on. Well, what happens? Wherever that beam is placed, as you move it around the room, wherever it's placed, that particular area lights up. But there's still darkness around it, and there was darkness before it. This is a really good analogy for what our blueprint does in the world if we let it. Now, what does it require of us to let it? Well, we kind of got to know it. If once again we're just going about with our chin just barely above the water, thinking ourselves the victim or at the whim of external forces, then we're certainly not thinking, how can I give? How can I provide? How can I help? So, what we do in Blueprint is we identify those tools that you have in your unique, one of a kind toolbox so that you can intentionally use them. It is an amazing shift for those of us who've been through the Blueprint. When we now have that inventory on our wall, like again, is what is right behind Brandon, we look at it all the time. We're looking at it, reminding ourselves of what we've been given naturally. So when the dark comes, and it's a matter of when, it's not if, when it comes, when it faces us, we know what our flashlight is. And we turn it on and we use it purposefully and intentionally. The beautiful thing that happens in these moments is the difference between giving just to give and giving with your blueprint. When we give just to give, it does feel good. Sometimes, though, it can drain us at high, high rates of speed. And we find that we're dealing with the darkness of our own because we're out in darkness. We're shining our flashlight, we're doing our good. But if we're not using it from our blueprint, it is not self sufficing. It doesn't feed itself. It's like a self-inking pen, your blueprint is. So when you're using your blueprint, conversely to not using it, it is self-supportive. You can be using it for hours at a time, and you are still filled with natural power, creativity, and ingenuity, um, energy, high ideas, all the things that you need to create light in a dark place. So I want to open it up for any questions before we move on to Annie and then Brandon and then Bill. And other practitioners, please feel free to weigh in. Do we have any questions, and any other practitioners want to weigh in? All right, excellent. Now we will go then to Annie. Annie, if you will, share with us from your perspective. And again, Annie, Bill, and Brandon, they have each come to this talk today with their particular blueprint. And you're going to hear something a little different from each of us. So Annie, go ahead. How would you help people deal with uncertain times?
Yeah, when I speak to people who are facing uncertainty, and right now, I mean, we're surrounded by it. The world is surrounded by uncertainty every day in the news. We're, riding the roller coaster of what is happening, and the energy is heavy. And I find solace in looking at my blueprint, and I like to focus on principle three, which is I have been given by God everything that I need to deal with this. That does not mean that I have to deal with it on my own. That quote, sometimes it really irritates me when people say, like, God wouldn't give you anything you can't handle. That's not true. Sometimes what you need is another person. But what I do believe in is that God has given us the tools through our blueprint that we can use to either help others or help ourselves. Sarah Jakes Roberts, one of my idols, and she talks about that you have a cabinet, that you have ingredients in your cabinet that you can use to put together what you need. Sometimes you got to cook out of what you got in your kitchen. And to me, I love to walk over to my blueprint and I look at it and I go, oh, I forgot that I have that. I forgot that I was using that. That's something that I haven't leaned on in a while. Maybe I should try that. And it just gives me reminders of what I already have within me that God has given me that I can lean on. Maybe I've been leaning on something too long that needs to get put back. Maybe that's one of the things that's weighing me down is I've been using the same tools and tricks over and over again and they don't work anymore. And so I've got to try something new. But what I like to rely on is that whatever I'm facing, I've been given the tools to use it. God has given those to me. It is unique to my blueprint. And just to lean on that. And then phone a friend, use a lifeline.
Nice. I love how you're recognizing that sometimes what we are facing does need someone else to come alongside. And I know each of us have experienced that. Even though we're practitioners, we
Yes.
too need that someone else. And I also really appreciate how you identified that it's not actually, you're not a separate flashlight from God having to juice your own batteries. It's God
Yeah.
that's moving in you that enables you to do it with that creativity and energy, etc.
Yeah, and when I am relying on the tools that I have been given, that energy is just there. It juices me all on its own. And so I don't have to go looking for external energy. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, the energy comes.
Nice. Yeah, you don't need a 5 hour energy, do
No.
you? All right. Any other practitioners want to weigh in on what Annie was sharing, or are there any questions? Hey, Ray, even though we can't see you, I might be calling on you, right? You understand this?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Excellent. Hey, Brandon, how are you doing today? And are you ready to share with us your approach to uncertain or challenging times?
Hey Sammy. Yeah, I'm doing well. I think that it's probably going to sound similar, but just the topic, what comes up for me when you're talking about uncertain times, and Annie, I relate, right? The energy that I'm feeling right now and that clients are feeling out there is this is uncertain, this is complex, this is definitely outside the norm of recent memory, at least. I was actually in a uh, leader development day about 3 weeks ago, and we did this exercise. And that exercise was, I didn't lead the exercise, but essentially each person had these stickies in front of them. And we asked them, this was a team within the organization. So think of it as like a department within the organization. And it was about 12 people on that team. And each person had these stickies in front of them. And we kind of went through this exercise of, hey, we all have these different roles we play. We have these different things that are important to us. We have these different identities, whether we're at home with our kids or we're at work on the team here or whatever it may be, other relationships. Um, so take these stickies and on each one, write down, right, one thing that's important to you or one role that you see yourself playing and keep doing that on stickies, right? Just one thing per sticky. At the end of that first part of the exercise, everybody kind of picked their own spot on the wall in the room and they put up their stickies. And it was kind of cool because we didn't tell them to put it in a circle, but it started to kind of look like this because we said, hey, put those things that are core to you right in the center. Like, I mean, like really important to you right now, like dad, right? Some people had father right in the middle. And then the things that are, they're important, but it's not like being a father right now. That kind of went on the outside. And most of the 12, right, started to look like these circles. Fast forward to the end of this exercise, there were a few people in there who were, this was a government organization. So there were a few people in there who were taking the deferred resignation program and all of, those things, those force reducing type things that are going on right now in government. And they're like, talk about uncertainty, talk about just not knowing, not being able to control what's going to happen, and some angst there. And what came next was just like, hey, they asked like, hey, what do you think the benefits of coaching are in a time like this? And some of my colleagues answered. And then when it was my turn, I just said, hey, my job is to help you bring all of those stickies that you have on the wall right there. And there's some that you probably didn't have time to kind of write up. It's to help you bring those stickies, all of your stickies, to bear. This group had no idea what Blueprint was, right? So the exercise was tailored to the group. And so it was to help you bring your whole self to bear. And I said, what else is cool is you're transitioning out of this role that you've been in for 10, 15, 20, one case was 30 years. Wow. And isn't it comforting to know that you have had these stickies with you all along? You've grown, you've evolved, you've added stickies, you've redefined some stickies, things, some of those stickies mean different things to you now than they did before, but you've had them all along. And regardless of where you go next, what role or title that you are in or you carry next, you will take those stickies with you. And you will be able to bring your whole self to bear on whatever it is that you are tackling next. And to me, that's something that, man, that really tethers me when I think about all that's going on, all the complexity. Knowing my blueprint, like having gone through the process, and it's continuous, right? But just the process of just understanding that there's so much more to us. There's our blueprints, right? There's so much more to us than whatever role we're playing,
Yeah.
whatever job we're going to hunt next,
Yeah.
right? Whatever position I hold in that company. Man, it's nice to know that I am way more than that and I can rely on that. And I have been given everything I need, be it internal or external resources, like Annie said, phone a friend, lifeline, right? It just be, having all the resources you need doesn't mean you have to do everything yourself. It just means that you have you, and then I have Annie's blueprint. I could give Annie a call. Maybe her blueprint's better suited to help with whatever I'm doing, but it's just very comforting. And the word tethered comes to mind. I posted this today, posted a couple of weeks ago too. And it's just something that's really resonating with me. Actually, I posted a couple of weeks ago, right after this facilitation that I did at the end of that week. But tethered comes to mind. I just feel tethered and comforted knowing that. So that's what's coming up for me.
Thanks for sharing that with me. Can you share with us what are the four categories that are in that blueprint behind you?
So blueprint here is purpose elements, right? And so on here, there's several elements of purpose. It doesn't necessarily mean that like each one of these things is my deeper purpose and cause. Skills or strengths, passions, and values. And then, depending on the context of my life, certain things, certain players jump out at me. Like just jump out as, oh man, that would be really useful in this context of my life right now. And so, of course, then that's the exercise we go through with every once in a while. It's, hey, what's really jumping out at me? And then over on this side, I've got a tower, right, where I can take those and start to filter them down and really gain a sense of clarity about what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, who it is that I'm supposed to be helping. And again, that helps tether me even more because I can express that and find that in just about everything that I could possibly do, right? So I tell people all the time, like, you go through this work, this self work, it doesn't mean you have to blow up your entire world. And just like you were doing this one thing and you're finding your purpose, you're getting this clarity, doesn't mean quit and blow everything up right away, right? It's about because you find expressions of your blueprint in what you're doing. And then yes, maybe you start to make some smaller decisions to bring you in more alignment, and before you know it, that may compound. And yeah, you may end up leaving or maybe not. Um, yeah. So
I love how you're recognizing that it's not really the role. And you're so right.
yeah.
We get caught up in our roles all the time, both personal and professional. And we look at, I mean, look at your resume. When you submit a resume to a new job, it's based in your experience. It's not necessarily based in these natural God-given things that you've got in your blueprint. And it should be, shouldn't it? And I love too how you're recognizing that it's not just your blueprint and your purpose is something that you can apply in absolutely everything that you do, absolutely every role, whether as a father, as a mother, as a business owner, whatever, you can apply it and should apply it everywhere because it's that current that's running underneath everything, supporting everything.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir. Any
of
questions
course.
or comments from fellow practitioners?
I loved the analogy with the stickies. That was just brilliant that because everybody I know lives our life by stickies, right? And so if you can take your stickies with you wherever you go, I mean, that is a brilliant analogy. I know it was actually physical process that you were doing, but that is just an amazing analogy. I think that we can help people that they can relate to that. You know, as opposed to saying, "Hey, what are 25 of your values? What are 25 of your skills? What are, we all talk about our tools, right? But I think every human can relate to the fact of, "Oh, I have a sticky that tells me that."
Yeah.
I think that's just
Yeah.
amazing.
In fact,
And
you had a,
throughout the course,
sorry. No, go ahead.
yeah, throughout the course of that, like, because it was actually a team exercise. And so then everyone took their stickies and they started to categorize them across the team
Hmm.
so that the team could see that at first the team saw all these unique blueprints, right? We didn't call them blueprints in this exercise, but blueprints of individuals, the uniqueness that each individual brought. And then they came together as a team, they started to group them. And they naturally had groups of current role, values, hobbies, like things like that just started to naturally occur. And the team then could say, look at us all made up of our unique blueprint. And now look at the team blueprint that's emerging.
Mhm.
And look at, as a team, the resources that we all have and can share with each other. And throughout the course of that, then too, people were like, as I'm sitting here and we're going through this, I realize I have more stickies. I have more stickies that I kind of want to like write another one down and put it up there. And man, that's pretty powerful. You start to recognize I got a lot of stickies.
That's so
That's
cool.
real super cool. Yeah, super cool.
And Annie, you shared an experience with me. Sorry for putting you on the spot. That happened just yesterday, where you were able to pull off one of your stickies and explain actually two different things to somebody. You explained not only one of your blueprint items, one of your stickies, but you
Yeah.
also explained this idea behind a design. Do you want to share it?
Yeah, I yesterday was given the wonderful opportunity to facilitate mock interviews with high school students. And if this is not something that everybody gets to do every day of your life, I highly recommend it. Reach out to your local school district. I assure you, they are looking for people to do this with their students. And I was able to sit there and lead these interviews with other kids. And I just happened to have another adult sitting in the room next to me. And as we were wrapping up our interviews, his student that he was interviewing left first. And so he ended up watching me interview a student. And I really noticed he was really lasering in on our interview, which made me nervous, but okay, fine. And then when I finished, he asked me how I knew to interview the student in the way that I was interviewing them. Because all I kept doing is with every answer that the student was giving me, I kept asking them for something that they brought to the table that was a strength that they had. I was essentially asking those students what their stickies were, what were their points that they were bringing to the table as we were working our way through the interview. And so when he asked me how I knew how to do that, the only answer in my head was, this is something on my blueprint. It's actually big, giant, bold, right in the middle of my blueprint that I love to empower people coming up behind me. That's one of the things that I really get a lot of energy from is doing that. And so twofold, I was able to explain to him that I have worked through a process that shows what I'm good at, that it's actually in my design from God that I'm supposed to do this. And then the second thing was to explain that all I'm doing is shining a flashlight on their strengths and their abilities. And so yeah, very similar. But again, I mean, I could sit here and listen to Brandon talk about this all day.
Yeah, it's a cool concept to think of blueprint in terms of a team. Brandon, you brought up some really cool components of that. One that you now start to think of what's our team blueprint. And so, how can we use each other to create a better whole, a better end product, whatever, better service? But then the other thing that you mentioned is how if I'm listening to people or watching people around the room, I can, in hearing them, it mirrors back to me stuff that's true about me as well. So thank you for bringing up that component. Any other questions or shares before we move on to Mr. Bill? All right, Bill, you ready to download your wisdom? We're all ready to bask.
You're expecting way too much.
Nope, just based in a pattern.
I guess in batting this concern around that there's all this noise that we are confronted with. It's always been that way.
Mm.
We're not living in any different time. It's just amplified a little bit because we have a few more tools to do that.
Mm.
So we have to kind of take a different tact as far as how to deal with it for yourself and for other people. But I look at everything as energy. And I heard the word energy come up about, what, 8 different times in the past couple minutes. And one of the things that I know, because I get the backing up every once in a while, I have to turn the news off. I just have to get out of it. And anything else that's socially trying to get at my mind share, you know? And but the one thing that I have learned is that that you can pretty much heal anything if you can take just some time to think about what you're grateful for.
Mm.
That's it. I mean, just think about where we live, where you live, your family, your friends, the people that surround you, the teams you might be part of, your kids, your neighbors, uh, just being able to get a glass of water whenever you want. I mean, there's a lot of things to simply be grateful for. And it's easy to get caught up in all the noise because you're only getting part of the story. I mean, you're not there. You can't see what's going on in Ukraine. You don't know what's going on in the leadership with China and all these other people and all the craziness that's there. And all you get is the condensed stuff that's attempting to get at your head. They just want to get in your mind and get your attention. And quite frankly, that's just the universe talking to us all. We really can make a difference by thinking differently. I mean, if you just think about what makes you happy, what I mean, you're surrounded by happiness, believe it or not. I mean, it may be difficult to believe that, but you really are surrounded by happiness. So what specifically makes you happy? How do you feel happy right now? And then another thing to think, what gives you joy? What do you do that gives you joy? What brings you peace? How do you feel content? But the most powerful of all of those things is, what are you grateful for? That's how you manifest almost anything, is just by looking for those positive things. So the next time you get in a quandary mentally, whether it's something you hear on the news that pushes your button or something that happens locally or whatever it is, that's basically the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, you're asleep, wake up. So what are you supposed to learn from that? What are you supposed to get from it? Look for those kinds of things because it's all energy, good and bad. And the only thing you can do is convert energy you don't like in one fashion into something else. That's it. I mean, you can't destroy it. You can't get rid of it. You just have to deal with it. So we have all the tools, as we have been taught numerous times. You're born with all you need. A lot of times we simply forget what that is. So spend some time and think about what you have that you're grateful for. List those things out. If you're encountering somebody that's having a difficult time, well, let them talk. The best way to let things go is to let the energy come out, let it keep coming, let it go. It may take some time. Sometimes you can ask some questions that'll kind of direct the thought process, but for the most part, you just simply have to let the flow happen and get into the middle of it. Give as much love as you possibly can and just simply be there, because these are real problems people are having. But most of it is because they're simply so caught up in all the craziness, they can't see the forest for the trees. And it's our job to help them see the trees. What's in there, the birds, all the stuff, you know. And I know it sounds kind of trite, and it's difficult when you're facing something serious because there's a lot of serious things to face. But I've seen people tackle cancer with this and cure themselves, because the universe wants to help you. It really does. That's what it's there for. We're the ones that fight it. So, I mean, I like the blueprint process because it makes you sit down and think about those things that you have that are important to you and how you can help others with those things. But I think the biggest thing it gives you is the time to do that, because we don't typically do that. We rely on reaction, and we just jump on something when we think it's needed. But if we would just take the time to sit and let it roll over us a little bit, get a sense of what it is.
Thank you, Sarah. Every time you talk, I just have this feeling of peace that comes over me, and I so appreciate it. When you said the word gratitude, the thought that came to me, and you said it later, was love. And to me, everything you were saying is about love, whether it's loving yourself, loving your situation, loving the person. I love how you said that if someone needs to talk, and even if they're venting something that makes you uncomfortable, just to love on them, and how you identify the power that happens then when your mind share, to use another word that you had, shifts and from reaction to proaction or love or gratitude. So I appreciate, Brandon used the word tethered earlier, and I'm hearing you talk about rooted. Like, what is your mind share rooted in? Is it bouncing like a ping pong ball back and forth with the news or your neighbor or whatever? Or is it rooted in love, peace, joy, blueprint? So thank you again so much for sharing that. I knew it. I told you. Wisdom. Any other shares or questions based on what Bill just said?
I I just I mean, first of all, Bill, I'm with Tammy. Like, when you are expressing your thoughts, it just, to me, it seems to just come from a space of there's no filler there. It's like you've clarified it down, and that you're expressing the main principle of what you're trying to express. Something you said really resonated, which was the process. That, man, I find this with leaders all the time. They just move from one thing to the next thing, the next meeting, the next crisis to deal with. And they just never, or rarely, many of them are not carving out the time that they need to reflect on some of these things and and uncover or reveal what is important about all this. What are you doing this for? What is your role on the team? What is your purpose with whatever crisis you're jumping to next? Maybe it's, crises are kind of their own animal sometimes, because there is required to be immediate action in some types of crises. But most of the things we're dealing with, you can take a step back. And when are you intentionally carving that time out to take the step back, listen, observe, reflect, and get to the core of what you want to get to the core of, what's important? And yeah, there's so much power in blueprint process because of that, because you're making that time to do it. Yeah, I love that.
I appreciate how both of you talked about time. And Bill, you even suggested that without someone sitting there with you, it's hard to take that time. Not only is it hard to take that time and be accountable to that time, but it's also hard to look inside yourself and see all the things that Brandon mentioned, the skills, the values, the passions, and the purpose elements. Yeah, I've asked people before, just straight out, what do you know your skills to be? What do you know your values to be? And they can only come up with a few. And even the few that they come up with, it's uncomfortable for them to say it because they feel like they're being egoic and complimenting themselves. Well, yeah, it's really not about complimenting, it's about identification and what's the inventory of those tools so you can get about and use them. It's not about yay me. It's more, ooh, how can I use this? And I mentioned this in my little video that I did announcing this webinar today, but a client of mine has known his blueprint for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. And there was something, I can't remember what it was, but there was some current event that really, to use his words, caused his blood to boil. And he's known his blueprint for 5 or 6 years. And so we did kind of a reverse blueprint, which I love. And Brandon, you mentioned that earlier. So the reverse blueprint is, okay, I've known it, but what is going on out there that is connecting with my blueprint players? Why am I reacting like I am? And you would assume that when you're reacting with blueprint, it's got to be a positive, proactive, productive kind of a feeling, but not necessarily based on everything we're talking about today. You're here at this point in the world's history to deal with this dark. That's why you're here. And as Bill said, there are challenging times. No matter where you go in history, there's challenging times. And again, individually and collectively, small groups, large groups, the universe, you name it. There are challenges all over the place because you have a light that is meant to fix it, help it, solve it, whatever. So identifying, taking the time with your blueprint process practitioner to identify what are all those things. Now, when you're out there drowning and you're flapping about just trying to keep your chin above water, hopefully you'll see what's there behind Brandon, and all of us have that. And you'll remember, oh, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to be surviving right now. I'm supposed to be helping. And this is how. So super powerful. Thank you all for sharing. Any shares, questions after Bill's talk? All right. Ray, you there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm in the same thinking around things like Bill was talking about, that life has been pretty much the same throughout history with troubles and tribulations. And it's our job to maybe grow in that, that's the opportunity to grow. And when we feed ourselves thoughts of gratitude, we strengthen that gratitude for everything that we're grateful for. And that we grow each time we have these trials and tribulations. And just to focus on our own place in time. I think, because right where you stand, there's a whole world that you can help. You don't have to travel anywhere, it's right in front of you. But the great part about being grateful and the love, because really I think that's all this is our growth toward love to a level that I don't even know if it's attainable, but the same kind of love that God has, unconditional for everyone. So anyway, that's about all I have.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate you stepping in and sharing with us there. So this idea, once again, and Ray, you just said it so well, there's always these things outside trying to distract us from what really matters and forces that make us feel like we have to survive. And the paradigm shift that, yes, as many have suggested, takes time throughout the day to help us make that paradigm shift. For example, from I'm just barely keeping my chin above float, where can I get help? To what am I grateful for? What am I joyful about? What do I love? Who and what is around me that I am super appreciative of? And again, if you have your blueprint, then that helps you even more know, oh, right. It's amazing, the paradigm shift. Have any of you had this experience where you're facing a challenge, whether personal or collective, and are feeling kind of knocked back on your heels, and then because you remember, you go and you look at your blueprint, and then you get that paradigm shift. And then like the circumstance hasn't changed, but now you know how to deal with the situation. Have any of you ever experienced that? Do you want to share?
You're looking for specifics?
Yes, please.
Well, I can't even think right off the top of my head about that, but I know it's happened. I know that when you surrender to it and just simply put your hands out for it, it'll come to you.
I totally get that you can't remember a specific story. Can you describe the feeling shift that you went through from before you looked at your blueprint to after?
Um, I think that I guess probably the single biggest thing was that I've noticed that I really don't have anything to do with it. As a matter of fact, when I take myself out of it, that's when it happens. It's when I'm sitting there grunting and groaning and got the shovel and trying to dig the hole keeps filling in.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
you have to have I guess you have to recognize that there's a need, and then you have to put an intention out there, but I think you have to walk away from it and let it do its job, let it do its work.
let it do its work. How would you describe the doer?
Well, you've already put the intention out there, so you've created a basis for something to happen. And you just simply have to have the faith that it will happen for the best, whatever that is, and walk away from it. I mean, the more you focus on it, it's kind of like picking a scab, you're going to get something infected.
Nice.
I mean, it's a bad,
No,
sorry
it's
about
it's
the
perfect.
graphic, the visual there, but
Perfect.
I just find the more we meddle with things, sometimes the worse it gets. You recognize a need, you acknowledge that need, whether it's arthritis acting up or whether it's somebody that's uh, told you they have a terrible illness that they've been come down with or whatever. I just I think part of the healing right there is just being able to be somebody for them to reach out to. I mean,
And
I guess yeah, yeah, in a way, I've not really seen a whole lot of proof about it yet, but I know that in one of the meditation things that I engage in right now, it's really designed to help me get a focus on the things that are important, and also to start to feel that energy flow in the right way, and to appreciate it and to let it do its work. But I've also known when I start those sessions up, I've been taught to invite other people into it, even though they're not there, like my sister or my wife or my friends. I've got some people at church that I know that have gone through some tough times, and just sort of visualize them there right along with me going through those positions. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I do have faith that something will happen, and it won't be negative.
nice. Even if the situation itself is negative, you have that confidence within your blueprint and your
Well,
team.
again, it's our judgment that it's negative. Well, we don't know the whole story.
Mm.
I mean, if God's really in control of stuff, then who are we to second guess? Oh, you can, but it's just a meaningless exercise to do that. And I guess you do it long enough to realize that it is, and then you stop doing it, and then things start happening.
I love that. That's a very good point. How it might not be negative, or it might not be positive because we don't know the whole story, but the trust instead, talk about a massive shift in focus from the seeming ups and downs to, okay, what can I know? What can I be certain of? And that goes back to what Brandon was saying about blueprint.
I can't tell you how many times I've listened to something on the news and immediately formed a judgment.
Hmm.
And then a day or two later, the rest of the story comes out and my whole opinion changes.
Yeah.
Now, what is that?
It's a great,
And what was I putting out before when I had those thoughts,
good point.
you know?
Hmm.
So don't be so quick to pull the trigger.
Or to your point, form an opinion.
Well, that's what I mean by pulling a trigger.
Yeah.
Because if you form an opinion, you are pulling a trigger and you're sending something out that you
Point.
can't recall
Right.
and you don't know what impact it's going to have when you do.
Good point.
So
Being a steward of your thinking, or as you said, your mind share. Love it. Brandon, you had your hand raised. So technological of you.
Yeah, just what came up for me right there was receive mode. That has really been um, front and center for me for about 6 months, intentional about it. And it's basically what Bill said. It's so often it's like, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? Okay, I've got this going on next week. And so what do I need to do to prepare for that? And I can't think of what to do. And then, you're sitting there racking your brain. And it's like, man, just how can you get into receive mode? Meaning get away from it, stop trying to think it, and get in a spot where you can actually listen, observe, notice the energy levels that we've been talking about, and just get in that place where you're open to just listening and receiving what comes to you. That's what came up for me as Bill was talking there about, just walk away, get away from it.
Mhm.
And then sure enough, then you usually actually, figure it out, or it figures itself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what came up for me.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
I totally appreciate you sharing. And do you, while we have you, do you have a story where you, before you might have been not in receive mode and ups and downs and thinking, overthinking, and then looked at the blueprint and had a paradigm shift? Do you have a specific example of that you'd like to share?
Several. I mean, that a lot in the last year,
Mm.
specifically just trying to maybe grow my business, grow the
Mm.
coaching business, help more people with Blueprint, and thinking, all right, well, I got to post, I got to post this many times. I got to come up with the content for my post, and I want to make a video. What, let me think here. Let me think about what topic to talk about. I'm just, maybe I'm just sitting at the computer, and it's like, nope, I'm just gonna go for a walk.
Mm.
Or what I really love to do lately is go for a run. Something about the run lately has been able to get me there more than a walk can.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know the physiology behind why,
Right.
but it's just a beautiful scene, and I go run, and I know I'm doing good things for my heart, or I believe I am, and I can just be in tune with the run and be grateful I'm on it and focus on my steps and just being out there and the wind and cold. I like running in cooler weather,
Mhm.
and before you know it, things start just coming to you if you're will and you listen. And on those runs, when I'm trying to just kind of let it come to me, I'll actually take those in and let them go instead
Mhm.
of, well, let me pull out the recorder, let me get my watch going, let me,
Yeah. Nice.
right? You see so many tips about, well, how do I capture these ideas throughout the
Yeah.
day? And then, because I lose them if I don't write them down or record them or something. And when I'm trying to listen and be in receive mode, whipping out the recorder is actually counter to what I'm going for in those moments. I'm not saying never
Love
do that,
it. Right.
but if I'm trying intentionally to get into receive mode and just listen to what comes to me, I don't want to do that. I just kind of like when it comes, I just let it come and I just feel it and then when it goes, and I let it go. Harder to do sometimes, right? That's not always easy. Um, but yeah, that's one example. I mean,
Nice.
really, then it's like, yeah, I apply that to everything where
Mhm.
I'm a thinker, I'm a reflector. It's in my blueprint, and I like to I just think about the implications. I like to get to the core of things and
Yeah.
just like what's going to happen next, and boom, 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 and I'll get in a loop.
Yep.
And because that's all just me trying to solve everything with my brain and like what I know, and
Yeah.
right, and
Yep.
we don't we could we as individuals can't possibly have experienced everything we need to experience to do everything ourselves, know everything, right, and be able to solve every problem that comes up. And so it's like I'm just gonna try to get in receive mode. I'm just gonna
Nice.
go and just let it go and just see what comes and feel it. And then I get back and no, I didn't record it, but if it's something that really was energizing me, it comes back,
I love that.
you know. The other
Yep.
day I got finished with it, I got home, and then I still feeling compelled. And so just made a video in my running clothes,
Nice. Yeah.
right? So yeah,
I
thanks.
love that. It reminds me of something Bill was talking about too. It's just you step away and then that light can come through. And I notice with myself that my brain will absolutely chunk on deadlines, to-do lists, what I think people are expecting of me, whatever. My brain just perseverates on it. And so, of course, if I get the stuff done so I can check the box, but I did it in that kind of brain phase, then that light, that effortlessness, that beingness isn't infused into the thing I'm doing. I could just be getting back to somebody, replying to somebody, and my brain's super focused on get it done, get it done, get it done. So awesome. Thank you. Annie, do you have a story you'd like to share?
As I've been sitting here thinking about it, yeah, I do spend, some time trying to get out of get it done, get it done, get it done. But what I have noticed as I'm facing uncertainty or something that like rubs me the wrong way
Mm.
is that as I have gotten to know my blueprint, I'm now better able to understand why it's rubbing me wrong.
Nice. Yeah.
I can see that, oh, wait, that is actually in direct conflict with something that is in my blueprint.
Yeah.
And so now I know why it's rubbing me wrong. Whereas, previously I might have sat there and spun my wheels and gotten all wrapped around the axle about, something that couldn't understand why I didn't like it. And so I would just sit there and stew in it. And now that I know what's in my blueprint and what is important to me, I am faster to pull
Mm.
the ripcord and go, that's just in direct conflict with what's important to me. And I know that I need to take a deep breath and walk away.
Nice.
And this is something that God can sort out later in his own time. This has nothing to do with me. This is against my blueprint. Time to go. Thank you so much. Peace out. And, you know, that is what has come up for me is this something that I actually care about? Or is this something that just I need to let go because that's in direct conflict with my blueprint and I need to move on
Yeah.
because I need to focus on what's important.
Love that. Yeah. And for me, I often feel like shame. If I'm
Yes.
reacting to something negatively, then I feel
Mhm.
shame and I feel weak. But if I look
Yes.
at my blueprint and, like you said, I'm like, oh, ho, ho, that's why it's bothering me. And that's a God-given thing. And then we're enabled to rotate out those players, aren't we? We're able to
Yes.
recognize, oh, okay, that one's not all, it's getting bruised, like you talked about. So I'm gonna ask that dude to get off the court by bringing on someone that can actually cope with this situation better. And as you all are identifying, it doesn't mean the situation changes. It doesn't mean you come up with a solution right away. But now, okay, here's my flashlight. There's the dark. Here I go.
Yeah. Time to move on. Time to shine my light somewhere else. I'm not getting anywhere. Shining my light right here. Time to go.
Yeah. And I love that recognition of trust in God as well. And Bill talked about this too. I think all of you did. The idea that it isn't us anyway. And so we actually don't need to chunk our brain on deadlines and problems, et cetera, because it's not us that's solving it. Anybody have a final comment to wrap us up? Okay, fine. I'll do it. All right. So we're always on the fourth Wednesday of every month at noon Pacific, right here at the same Zoom link. And we will all be putting out promotional stuff, just inviting you to the next webinar. But the next webinar will be April 23rd, right here on the same Zoom link at noon Pacific. And we'll have a variety of practitioners on. Who knows? It'll be a surprise. And it'll be a surprise what we're going to talk about too. So all of you, I hope you have an amazing week, month ahead, and we will see you soon. And thanks to my practitioners. It's always fun having conversations with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.